before?
Yeah, oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that'd be great if you don't mind.
It was built for the Fortner brothers because they had no way of guaranteeing their wool to get to market. So they had this machine made up in Melbourne, and it's 2 petrol engines, one to drive the machine, one to drive that generator. And every wagon, 10 wagons, every wheel, electric motor, chain driven.
Wow.
Every wheel. So there's 10 wagons, 40 wheel drive. And it was made in 1906.
In Australia?
In Australia, down at Melbourne.
Yep.
And this black came on the scene in 1928. And that was flat out at 8 mile an hour. These trucks were flat out at 30 mile an hour. And they eventually took over the wool carting from them. And that machine was taken down to Clifton Hill in Melbourne, in High Street, somewhere around Mary Creek. And it used to run a factory down there, and they used to do tannery and leather products. And the factory burnt down in 1936.
Yep.
And it was taken to Sims Metal and then crushed in 1936. That's why this is the only place,
Yep.
possibly Hay, that you'll ever hear anything about it.
Right.
Because it didn't go anywhere else. Balranald and Hay. And this chap came on the scene in 1928. And there's a hotel on the road out there, the Ivanhoe Road, 28k out of town, called the Homebush. And that was Cobb & Co. And he came from Melbourne to here because he used to cart wool from Warrnambool, Ararat, Ballarat into Melbourne. And when Vic Rail put in Country Rail, they passed a bylaw that road couldn't compete with rail. So he came up here to Balranald and he made his base out there at the pub, thinking he was going to get the wool. But for a period they wouldn't give him the wool because we're using horse and bullock teams, and if they gave him the wool, the people that owned the horse and bullock teams didn't have an income.
Mm.
So he thought to himself, well, what am I going to do? I've made a mistake here, because he's got 6 trucks and 6 drivers and he's living in a hotel. Anyway, he decided to make the stock crate. So he made a single deck stock crate and a twin deck. He said that he can't take credit for the single deck because farmers were tying gates onto the trays.
Yep.
And that was classed as a single deck. So he made twin deck and triple deck. And then one thing led to another, and they had to get bigger and bigger because it was becoming popular and taking at work over from the drover, and the small numbers that they started off with started to get into big numbers and things like that. And then they had to have extra wheels on the axle to carry the weight and extra axles and things, and they came up with the idea of having a bogie drive.
Yep.
And he had broken diffs and gearboxes, and he made a transfer box, and he ran a separate tail shaft alongside the existing tail shaft with universals up over the front axle onto the second axle.
Wow.
And that was the birth of the bogie drive on the transports. And then
What was his name?
his name was Ralph Wood.
Ralph Wood.
Very little known about him because everything he did, nothing was patented.
Yep.
And this transport is the first transport in the world to carry 100 bale of wool. That photograph is in an encyclopedia set that we've got around there in the cabinet, and it's also in the Royal London Museum. And that truck has had a story written about it, and it's called the truck with 2 engines. He got sick of getting bogged and everything, because when you got bogged you would have to unload, get out of the bog, reload, and so on. He decided to put another engine at the back of the cab and a generator at the back of that. He put a diff in the last axle of the trailer and electric drive under the floor. That gave him 4-wheel drive.
And was that powered off the main engine? The electric?
The electric engine had its own engine,
Oh, right.
which drove the electric generator.
Got it. Yep.
That is still being used today on every electric train.
Right.
If you get into an electric train and you're roughly halfway between the front and the rear,
Yep.
and you feel a vibration under the floor, that is from that invention.
Wow.
If you see the mining trucks in Western Australia towing 5 trailers,
Yep.
the third trailer has electric axle.
Right.
Totally different to what it was originally designed.
Yep.
Totally different, but the same. That's a 1932 Bedford truck with a sleeper as part of the cab. That never happened to the 70s.
Yep. With sleeper cabs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that's local history.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
You won't see those anywhere. You will see that at Alice Springs.
Yep.
Because we nominated him for the Hall of Fame and
Okay.
he was accepted 3 years ago.
Yep.
So you'll see it there.
Yep.
And yes.
Oh, thank you.
And you can use those pictures because we own those pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
You won't be tied up.